on their person, on their body, and in the vehicle. They had over 1,400 .223 caliber rounds that were available to them, and they had over 200 9mm rounds on their persons as well. The guns were legally purchased. The 2 handguns were purchased by him. The rifles were not, but those are components that we are still following up on. All 4 guns were legally purchased.
They were, in the vernacular, loaded for bear. The killers in Southern California didn't just pick up a nearby weapon and start shooting. From long guns to semi-automatic hand weapons, from disguises to body armor and pipe bombs, well planned and perfectly carried out until, thankfully, they were finally discovered and gunned down. Here's the issue. Scream and complain all you want about the militarization of police, yet what will it take to finally convince people that cops in many cities and towns are outgunned far too often? And it's something we have known about for years. Our guest is a former New York City police detective responsible for crime control strategies, serving him well in cases such as the 1993 terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. Let's welcome Thomas Ruskin to the Hard Line. Tom, I want to thank you very much for joining us. And this is something that I have been talking about for an exceptionally long time. And what happened in Southern California, I think, brings it home. 6,500 total rounds of ammunition were in this house, 12 pipe bomb devices, and these are legal weapons. Tom, as a former cop, you've got to get angry every time you hear somebody say, well, you're militarizing the cops. This is what you're up against every time you walk out the door and you have no idea who's got what on their person.
Listen, thank God we do militarize the cops, because as you see at the end of that day yesterday, when the cops were able to bring down the 2 people responsible for this heinous crime, they used 2 Bobcats, 2 military-type vehicles to trap in the vehicle and bring these people to justice. They had to kill them, but they brought them to justice. And if they had not had that military type of equipment, some cops and some law enforcement may have gotten hurt.
Now, look, the San Bernardino cops, I think, did an outstanding job. And we have New York City is well armed to the teeth right now, and so many other cities are. But, Tom, isn't the thing that people miss here is you have small communities, smaller towns, places where terrorism is indeed just as possible as any place else. And these are municipal police departments, county police departments. They're not as well prepared as this. We're talking about weapons, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that fire rounds of ammunition that will go right through a car, a vehicle. It'll go right through a vest, right through a body and into the back wall and still keep going. Yes?
Absolutely. And who would have heard of San Bernardino yesterday? I mean, people heard of it, but you never would have known that this could happen in San Bernardino, California. Yes, there are smaller departments around this country who could be outgunned by some of the military-style weapons that are on the market today and the way that people are using them. But that's not a reason to outlaw it. What it is a reason to do is control it and to understand who owns the guns and to do proper background checks on these people to make sure that people like the guy in Colorado who had been interviewed by the Secret Service cannot get a gun, cannot shoot up a clinic, you know, in his whim or his demented state.
All right, now I'm going to follow up on that because I'm a gun owner, I'm a licensed weapons owner as well, and I've been part of friends and family who have been members of the NRA for years. And there are people right now saying the NRA is the problem. They need to close some loopholes here. They need to get behind certain acts of Congress, certain laws that are out there, and make sure that people who can't get on an airplane, they can't fly, they're on a no-fly list, yet they can still buy a weapon. Tom, don't we need to start there and convince the NRA and people like that? There's a lot of us gun owners out here who don't mind the checks, who don't mind being part of this. You've got to take the guns out of the hands of the killers.
You have to take the guns out of the hands of people who are mentally demented,
yes,
as well as deranged. And you know, there has to be a time where we do proper background checks to make sure that people who shouldn't have guns don't have guns. You and I are not going to commit a crime like happened yesterday. So there's no problem in arming people. It's just making sure that those people who are armed are using them for the right purpose.
The media, much of the media, has failed to call this words that I have used, and I'll bet you that you're going to use as well. We hear a lot of things about it, but domestic terrorism. Do we not have to stop? Let's take workplace violence out of this right now, Tom. Don't we need to face this as domestic terrorism and call it what it is?
This is domestic terrorism. I don't care what anyone else calls it. As an ex-New York City police detective who had different responsibilities in my time with the city of New York, this is domestic terrorism. They had pipe bombs. They put pipe bombs and explosive devices in the facility in which they shot up and killed 14 people and injured 21 people. They had pipe bombs at home left on their table. This is an American boy who became radicalized somewhere along his way. I don't know if it's when he met the Pakistani girl he allegedly married and they had a child, but he was willing to leave his 6-month-old baby daughter with his mother-in-law to go shoot up this place and possibly bomb it and put other bombs around the Southern California area.
30 seconds. What is it going to take to convince some people that we have to stop using this stop militarizing the police department line and start understanding that it is a new world and it needs to have this sort of protection? What do we do?
The police need this protection. I mean, the 1033 law, which gave police these type of military vehicles and assault weapons, are needed by smaller departments as well as New York City and some of the bigger departments.
Tom, do you think some people will ever get that, ever get it through their head?
I think it's going to take some convincing, the same way it's going to take convincing to enact proper laws to make sure the people who have guns should have guns. But, you know, it's something that we're doing today.
And think about it, the cops with those weapons in San Bernardino, they stopped these two before they could have killed anybody else. Thomas Ruskin, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll do it again. Another community faces a turning point, another group of people who will band together and survive. These are some of the other stories from San Bernardino. That's next, right here on The Hardline.